Hello again. Here I am with my daughter Phoebe. She's over 6 weeks old now. Look how she's growing. It's amazing, isn't it? You keep me up at night, don't you? Yes, I do, Daddy. Ha ha ha. I'm sorry. I shouldn't do that. No, you shouldn't really do that. Why don't you just sleep like a normal person? Because I am a daddy. You're what? A daddy. You're a daddy. Yes, and daddies, they don't ever sleep. They stay awake all the night long. It's utterly terrifying. I'm scared of my own child. But I love her, you know, in the way that only a father could love that face. It's a nice face. You're a good girl. I am a good girl. I'm a very good girl. Anyway, enough of this tomfoolery. Welcome to another retro video, where this week I am in... Oh, what happened there? I was so surprised. I hadn't said the guest yet. Oh, sorry. I misread my script. Very tightly scripted, these little pieces. Look, I look quite tired. That's your fault. You love me though, don't you? I do love you, but it's unconditional love, so therefore meaningless. I'd have loved you whatever had come out. A hat stand could have come out. A bunch of flowers. A ventriloquist dummy could have come out of my wife, and I would have still loved it. Now that's just crazy. So welcome to a retro this week with QI producer and producer of many, many amazing comedy hits, not that I've got news, John Lloyd. I remember this one being quite difficult to do. It was slightly, I think it comes out quite well, but it was, you know, he seemed in a confrontational mood to me. But we were very friendly afterwards, and he invited me on the Museum of Everything, the Museum of Curiosity. They're two different radio shows. Yeah, see him every now and again. He's a great guy. So I hope you enjoy it. I'll just let you know that I'm still on tour with my show, Lord of the Dance SETI. Not SETI, SETI. That's right, Phoebe. That's the joke there. In fact, Portsmouth, where I'm on Sunday the 19th, made a poster calling it Lord of the Dance Sofa. Rather missing the point, I would say. So let me know I'll let you know what's coming up. You can find out all the tour dates at richardherring.com/LOTDS/tour or richardherring.com/gigs if you want to be lazier. I'm coming up. Whether you'll get this in time. Southend. I'm at Southend on Wednesday the 25th of March. Aldershot on the 26th of March, that is long sold out. It's a tiny little lovely venue. 27th of March, Cambridge Junction, just a few tickets there. I usually sell out there. 28th of March, Shoreham by Sea, which is also sold out. Apologies. And then 31st of March, St David's Hall in Cardiff. I'm only playing the bar, which is still a roomy 300 seats. I think that is pretty close to selling out. If loads of you went to book there, they might put me in the main hall. Who knows? And the 2nd of April, Bath Comedia. And then I'm in Andover, New Greenham Arts. I'm in Sligo. And the 11th of April in Ireland, and loads more. I'm a little bit over halfway through the tour, 44 down and 35 to go, something like that. Although new ones are being added all the time. If you didn't know, Hebden Bridge I'm doing now, Ulverston I'm doing in June, Eastbourne also in June, and Southport. I think those are all quite new gigs in June and May and June. But for now, let us go and enjoy Rahalastapa. With John Lloyd. We didn't need to repeat that bit. Sorry, I did not know that. Aside, I did know it. I did really know it. Good. I hope you enjoy it. 3 minutes 57 seconds. That will really fuck some people off. Welcome to the Leicester Square Theatre. He may be quite old, but he can still do it 2 times in a night. It's Richard Herring. Thank you very much. Welcome to Richard Herring's Leicester Square Theatre podcast, or as all the cool kids are calling it, Rahelastapa. Oh, you're much better than last week's audience. Hooray! I've always wanted to do that, and I have done it before. How are we doing? There's some new people. There's the Butlers are here again. I'll just show people the audience. The mistake I was making when I was trying to film through the viewfinder. I realised that's there for me. There you go. They're both Butlers. He's a nuclear physicist. He's lost his hat. He's just, I don't know. He's just weird. He kind of comes to all the gigs. What's your name, sir?
Stuart, good name. Want to do a double act? What do you do for a living?
I run a pub.
You run a pub? You're fantastic. Brilliant. Whereabouts?
In Cranley.
In Cranley. That's quite a nice little area, Cranley. What's the pub called? Give it a little...
Richard Onslow.
The Richard Onslow. Who was Richard Onslow?
He was the MP of Guildford.
He was the MP of Guildford. His nickname was... Are you trying to get on QI or something? Is that what you've turned up for? I've got lots of... What is the best drink you have ever made?
Red wine with a splash of cola.
Wow, red wine with a splash of cola. They do things weird in Cranley. And is this your friend or your lady, your daughter? What is...
It's my girlfriend.
Your girlfriend, that's very nice. What's your name? Karen. You went, Karen, like you were trying to think, what's the most ridiculous name I could make up? And it was you did well. Karen. My parents couldn't spell Karen, is that the... Oh, was Karen in Bananarama? Don't remember her. Siobhan, I remember. Which one was Karen in Bananarama? Oh, she was the sexy one. Yeah, why do I not know her name? She was a good one. What do you work in the pub? Did you work as a barmaid? He's kind of sort of forced you to go out because to be honest, you're a lot better looking than him. So for once we can look at that, people at home. Then look at that. Something's going on, isn't it? What?
I work in the same pub, but I work for a train company.
You work for a train company. Is it the Holocaust Railways? little back reference to last time's podcast. I don't know when they're going. Very excited to be here. I've been in Glasgow last week recording a radio show, but I stayed at the best hotel in Glasgow, the Premier Inn. It's got to be the best. It's called the Premier. It's got to be the best one. And then I was a bit annoyed because I looked up the road, Sauchiehall Street in Glasgow. There's another Premier Inn at the other end of Sauchiehall Street. Which one's the Premier Inn? Make your mind up, Glasgow. They can't be both the Premier one. But my favourite thing that happened while I was there was I went down for breakfast and they have somebody who greets you and says, have you been here before for breakfast and stuff like that. And as I was leaving one time, a couple came down and the woman greeting him said, have you had breakfast before? And he said, not here. Like he seriously thought she might have been worried that he'd never... No, I don't. Breakfast? What? I'm 35 years old. I've never heard what you can eat before lunchtime. What is this strange necromancy? So I did enjoy... I think he knew, but he still felt he had to just clarify, not here. Yeah, I've had breakfast before, sure. I'm suspicious that he hasn't had breakfast before. Look, we've had some fun with there. That was a lot of fun, wasn't it? And you're all warmed up now. So I think it is time to introduce this week's guest, this episode's guest. He is best known for writing 2 episodes of Dr. Snuggles. Just fucking awesome. I can't wait to talk to him about that. Will you please welcome John Lloyd, ladies and gentlemen? Come in, John. Help yourself to a mic. Well, how are you doing? You all right?
Yes.
Looking very smart. That's very nice.
Yes. Going on somewhere more exciting later.
Oh, yeah. I suspect. So, Stephen Fry last week as he was leaving, he got a phone call from the director, William Friedkin. So that's the guy who was just going, I'm just going out to see my friend who directed The Exorcist. So, Dr. Snuggles, do you remember much about writing Dr. Snuggles?
I remember a little bit, yeah. I used to write them with Douglas Adams.
Yeah.
What I can remember is... little reaction there. I remember the producer was called Joop Fish. He was Dutch, and his secretary was called Veronica Plink. I'm sure it's pronounced differently in Dutch, but it was very funny at the time. Yeah.
It was quite a surreal, weird... I vaguely remember it, Dr. Snuggles. I don't know what year that was. I probably was too old to be watching kids' TV.
It would have been the mid-70s.
No, it's probably all right then. But it was sort of Dr. Snuggles, do. Slightly psychedelic or something weird.
And Peter Ustinov did the voiceover, I think.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, and Douglas and I used to moonlight in the evenings. We were both radio producers.
Yeah.
And we used to, I remember we got 500 quid an episode, which was absolutely, could buy a house with that in 1975. Marvellous.
And how did you we'll get right on to Douglas Adams, we'll get this out of the way, because that's probably the thing you get asked out about a lot, but how did you two get together and start writing together and working together?
We met at Cambridge, and we both ran a college review. So in those days, Footlights was considered a very naff thing to do. It was lots of rather nice men in velvet jackets. Hello, my dear, you look very attractive. And so you tended to avoid that in those days. And so college review was very cool when we were there, 70, 73, or Douglas 71, 74. And so I ran a thing called the Trinity Review, and Douglas was next door at St John's, and he had a thing called Adam Smith Adams.
Right.
Yeah, so that's how we met. And we didn't really know each other very well at Cambridge, and afterwards we just became about as good friends as you can be, really. We were very, very close. We spent a lot of time together trying to write things, and spent a lot of time eating hamburgers at a place called Tootsie's. I remember, very, very, very good hamburger chain it was. And we shared various flats together, and what can I say? It was fantastic fun. Douglas was a very, very funny and interesting guy. And in those days, when young, incredibly open-minded, you know, he was willing to espouse any idea, which is what made Hitchhiker so brilliant.
Yeah.
And as he got older, he kind of sort of settled into a set of opinions which were very ossified, in my opinion,
Right.
Slightly.
In what way? What sort of opinions?
Well, he introduced Richard Dawkins to his wife, Lala.
Yes.
And Dawkins basically converted Douglas from an agnostic to a sort of card-carrying atheist.
Yeah. You became quite strident as an atheist.
Well, it was just kind of... I have a thing. I don't espouse any religious faith, but I don't consider atheism in that way a scientific position. It's kind of like... You know, like I don't know whether there are little green men in flying saucers either, but I don't go and shout at people who think there are.
Yeah.
So
Maybe we should. Maybe that's where you're heading afterwards.
But I think it's and I think a lot of people say, oh, you know, science doesn't get enough of a voice in society. I think that's rubbish. I think it gets an enormous voice, and I also think that the idea that, you know, we're swamped by mad religious people is not true. There are actually an extremely small number of mad religious people. Unfortunately, they have inordinate influence in terms of blowing people up for no reason and so forth. But it's just in terms of the business of what the point of anything is, really.
Yeah.
And I struggle, though I have for many years. I haven't worked it all out yet, but I can't believe that life is meaningless. Does anyone really genuinely feel that life is completely meaningless? It doesn't feel meaningless, does it? It feels confusing and annoying and frustrating, but meaningless it doesn't.
Yeah, maybe you create your own meaning, though. It could still be meaningless, but, you know, you create your own meaning within the meaninglessness. I fucking failed the QI audition, that's it. I can't... That's it. Mate... Did so well last week with Stephen. I think Dawkins is interesting because I'm a big fan of his work, but if you follow him on Twitter, he's a massive prick. He just retweets every single bit of praise for himself. He retweets everything. It's the worst thing you can do on Twitter. And then every single argument, he'll have it like massively out in the open. Am I the only one who thinks? I mean, he's worth following. It's massively entertaining, but he's a massive dick. But he is married to an ex-Doctor Who assistant, so, you know, yeah.
There's a word for it.
Not Adric, one of the good ones.
Well, one of the things I did with Douglas in 1983, wrote a book called The Meaning of Life,
yes,
which is still in print after, amazingly, 30 years this year. And John Cantor, one of Douglas's other great friends, and I have rewritten a thing called Afterlife, slightly in homage to Douglas. And there's a word for exactly that person,
right.
Someone who retweets praise about themselves on Twitter, and it's a toot-garook, okay? So that is obviously what Richard is.
Yes, a little bit. He is a little bit. But you wrote some of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, so you wrote from the radio, the last couple of episodes of the radio, first series of the radio show.
Well, that was kind of natural because we wrote lots of stuff together. It didn't get made. We wrote a film treatment for Robert Stigwood about the Guinness Book of Records, about an alien race who were very good at athletics and jumping and swimming and all that. And they said they wouldn't destroy the world if we could beat them at an athletics competition. And Though they won all the athletics events, we won all the, how many people can you fit in a Mini and how many gherkins can you eat in 20 minutes and all that kind of stuff. So we thought that was great. We also wrote I thought, brilliant a sitcom called, it's a rather complicated title, you have to be a bit of an astronomer, it's called Snow 7 and the White Dwarves. And it was about two astronomers.
There's an astronomer in there in the middle, and we can pick him up.
Two astronomers sharing a house and an observatory at the top of Everest, which is apparently the best place you could have one.
Yeah.
One of whom is very untidy, one was very tidy. That was also another very good thing. And Dr. Snuggles, perhaps our only real success until Hitchhiker came along. And as you know, Douglas was famous for missing deadlines. So after about 4 episodes of Hitchhiker, he was driving the producer and the production team completely insane. It would take him nearly a year to write the first 4, and he asked me if I would help him out in the last 2, and we knocked them off very happily in the next couple of weeks. So.
Right.
And
it was weird that he did seem to struggle to write, because what he wrote was so great. In fact, part of the impetus behind me sort of starting to get back into writing loads of blogs and doing loads of podcasts was reading The Salmon of Doubt and seeing all these kind of ideas that he was working on and that he got a certain way with, and thinking all the stuff that he didn't do, all the stuff that he didn't achieve even within the time he was here, he seemed to spend a lot of time not writing. Is that fair to say, or finding it difficult to write?
It's absolutely fair, and he would. I'm not telling tales because he would be the first to admit.
Yeah.
I love deadlines. I love the sound of them whooshing by. He used to say. But this is just about. I don't want to be too sort of spiritually weird or anything, but this is the thing: is what drives somebody who absolutely hated the business of writing to make his living as one. It's rather like Richard Curtis pointed out to me, it's the oddest thing that Rowan Atkinson, the shyest man possibly in the universe, is probably one of the 10 most famous people in the world. Why would you do that to yourself, He always said because it was the only way he could think of affording the cars he likes. But, I know that's true. But it's that thing, and I must tell you this great story, another thing Richard Curtis told me, which when... one of the several biographies came out about Douglas after he died. I put this in the intro. It's written by a guy called M.J. Simpson, who was chairman of his fan club.
Right.
And Richard and Douglas had planned to have lunch in London. They're old friends. And on the way to lunch, Richard said, and how are you, Douglas? As you would. And Douglas said, and he's very puzzled in that way. He goes, I'm fine, but it's funny, I've been thinking about life, the universe, and everything, and I think I actually have got the real answer. So Richard thinks, well, it's going to turn a bit spooky all of a sudden. So he says, well, Richard thinks to himself, I could go 2 routes now. I can either say, my God, Douglas, have you? What's that then? And knowing that Douglas liked to talk, that would be the end of Richard's conversation during lunch. Douglas would just expound this amazing theory, and he'd never get to catch up on all the gossip, Or he could say, says Richard, and how's Jane? Oh, well done, Douglas, and how's Jane? So that's what Richard opted to do. So he said, oh, really, Douglas, and how's Jane? Anyway, 3 months later, Douglas died, and Richard's been kicking himself ever since. Because of all the people I've ever met in my life, Douglas is the one person who actually had a chance of discovering what it is.
And... So the first thing that introduced me to your work without really, I guess I wouldn't necessarily have known it, was Not 9 O'Clock News, I think, was probably the first.
You've got a lot of awards here, haven't you?
I have, yeah. I put these two in. I put them to intimidate.
2.
There. This is just from this year. That's bronze. That's the better than gold. So I just put that. They're there to intimidate you. Because I know you won't probably got a Chortle Award. So. Bet you have. But Not That Got News was one of the... Well, because I'd really loved Monty Python, but I was a bit too young for Monty Python, so I got to Monty Python through all the records and everything. And in those days, comedy shows came along about once every 10 years, it seemed. And Not That Got News was one of these things that kind of came out, and we were all really excited at school about this new show. And then I think, is this right? It was meant to start, and then it didn't start. Is that right? The first series, that there was an episode penned in, and then because of the Shah of Iran or something, or the Ayatollah taken off?
Yeah, it was. This is how different television is today than it was in 1979 when I'd helped invent a couple of formats that had been taken to television but without me, and I was a bit cross, and I went to go and ask essentially for a job as a production manager, and I walked in the head of department's office in television, Jimmy Gilbert, who'd started the Frost Report, and his first words were, "What kept you?" I said, "You don't even know who I am." He said, "Oh, yes, we do. We've heard all your shows. They're very good. We thought you'd never make a producer if you can't be bothered to bloody ask for a job. So we've earmarked 6 half hours for you to make a new series with. And there's no rules, except it has to be funny, it has to be contemporary. And we thought we'd call it Sacred Cows, but you don't have to use that title if you don't want to." So there I was. I thought, oh, that's just a lot easier than I thought. The only condition was I had to go and see a guy called Sean Hardy, who's this lunatic current affairs producer who kept putting jokes into Panorama, and they didn't want him anymore. So, and you you like radio too, and radio is basically a very simple medium, and there's not a lot of clutter. You don't have to worry about car parking or catering, or anything. Just get on and do the jokes, or whatever. So I used to make 3 of those a week in the 5 years I was in Radio 4. So having got this news, I took a week off skiing, which is an amazingly stupid thing to do. And in the run-up to what was going to be the first of 6, it's now called the pilot, but it was actually the first of Series 1, it suddenly became clear to me and Sean that all the material we had was going to go into that first episode, and what the hell we were going to do the following Monday, we literally had no idea. And it was actually the last time I can remember that there was the wind that an election would be in the air. And we'd made the show on sort of Tuesday, it was going to go up on the following weekend. And election's always called on a Thursday. And on Wednesday night, for the last time in my life, I actually knelt by my bed and prayed to God, please let election be called. And there was. And so it was all cancelled. The pilot, I don't know if anyone's ever seen it online, but Mel Smith, who wasn't in it, described it as the single worst half hour of television he'd ever seen. And I often say, when I put in these positions, being asking questions, it's a very important thing in life. I express as disaster as a gift, that very often, bad things that happen are often the making of you.
Yes.
So, and that was one thing. I learned my lesson very, very fast on that. And
So you got delayed by 6 months or so, yeah.
And we were able to rethink it, and Rowan and Chris Lang were the 2 people who survived from the cast. Managed to get Mel, who I'd always wanted, and I met Pamela Stevenson, as I've said before, at a party, and fell in love with her and thought, you've got to have her, so...
And then it all went off, because we were furious. I thought there was some kind of... because I never actually found out. I never bothered to check it. But at the time, I remember thinking there was some kind of BBC conspiracy, because it looked like a really exciting... it was the next thing that really hit was The Young Ones for me, was after that, when I was a little bit older. But
you see them dotted through history, don't you? There's for people younger than me, there's The Goon Show, and then there's Monty Python's my student thing, and then there's Not the 9 O'Clock News, and there's The Young Ones, there's The Fast Show. There's a string of them, and we don't really have one. It's the show. I call it the show that tells 15-year-old boys what to think. we need those to have. And it's just fascinating. Like, look what Not the 9 O'Clock News became. It was considered to be a political act, so I was told, that somebody very high up in the system had said, where's the new Monty Python? We haven't had anything for 10 years. You've got to pull your finger out. And Light and Tone was this incredibly powerful, world-famous organisation, which turned out wonderful shows. And they, I think, slightly reluctantly decided to get these 2 loonies, one from radio and one from current affairs, to see what they could come up with. I'm telling you, everyone on that show was a trainee apart from the floor manager. There was the director just come straight off his course, the secretary had been a receptionist, the production assistant had been a secretary. Nobody had any idea what they were doing. So we fumbled around for the first, 3 or 4. It started to get really good with a sketch called Life of Python, which was largely improvised, with Rowan playing a bishop and Mel playing Alexander Walker, the film critic, and where they'd made this blasphemous film about our Lord J.C., quite obviously our Lord John Cleese, the Messiah, the comic Messiah. And it was a very naughty thing to do, because Python, to our generation, well, you didn't criticise them. So it started to come good, and then, so at the end of the series, they said, well, we'll give you another go. BBC won't do that anymore, if it's not huge at the beginning.
Well, and also you can't just walk in and go, they don't go, oh yeah, we've been waiting for you to come.
No.
I might try it tomorrow, I might try and walk in. Oh yeah, we've been waiting for you. Oh, sorry, I didn't realise you've been waiting.
But the thing is, particularly in jokes, that's the only way it works. You find people who are talented or potentially talented, and you trust them and you let them learn. And that's the way actually you should teach children, as it happens, not tell people how to do it. And this hopeless system now where any idea that you take to anybody is filleted by committees and hierarchies of people until what remains of the original idea is not there. And then you make a pun, it doesn't work. They say, it didn't really work. You say, no, but that's your idea. You made it like that.
Well, it's true, and all the things I think that work, even from On the Hour, which I was involved in with Armando Iannucci, they just let him get on with stuff, and it's always great. And The Office, obviously, they just let them get on with it, and they nearly just dumped it, and because it wasn't put together by committee, but it did seem to be very hard to get these. When Monty Python was the same thing, wasn't it? They just walked into the office and said, "Oh, go and have 8 programs, and you can do whatever you like in them." Basically,
Well,
they trusted them to get
Barry
on with it.
Took, I think, put it together. He'd seen Palin and Jones in one place, and on the Footlights, Cleese and so on in the other place, and stuck them together and thought they might get on.
Yeah.
They didn't actually at all, but I used to argue all the time. But they did great work, amazing work.
But I got not 1982, the big calendar book. In our school, we were all given, I think I'd won a prize and I was allowed to pick any book. And I picked the not 82 book, and my dad was quite cross with me. But I think it's fair to say, though, that as a comedy fan, the 9 o'clock news books were a law of diminishing return. The first ones are great, and then the last couple, were you cashing in a bit on those, do you think? This is the 14-year-old me coming back. No. I wasted a couple of Christmas presents.
As in life, QI's been running 11 years, and it's the hardest thing is to keep up the keep up the fresh approach to it. It's not easy. Yeah. I see a lot of people here much younger than me, or even you, and they probably won't remember not the 9 o'clock news, but it's hard to imagine just how famous it was. It was like a mixture of Little Britain and The Office all rolled into one, and we were on the front page of the newspapers quite often. Pamela Stephenson was the sexiest, girl in the world, and Rowan was this amazing discovery, not necessarily by me. And the ratings went up by 1 million a week, and after the first series, they did a compilation from that first series, which was in many ways the weakest of the 4. And it got 17 million viewers on BBC One. It was just massive. But you could be in those days, and that was not an unheard of number. But you don't get those kind of numbers by poring over everything and taking low risk decisions and doing something a little bit like what was done last week. You do them by taking an act of incredible daring. That's how it pays off, I think.
Yeah. It was great. I remember I borrowed Phil Fry's copy of Hedgehog Sandwich. It was on LP. And I scratched it because I was trying to learn all the words to the songs, so I had to buy another copy.
But you're right. Of course, we did 4 years of it. In fact, oddly enough, I found myself, as you do, late at night, pissed on YouTube, and I found an old Not the 9 o'clock news from the 4th series.
Right.
And I watched this through, and I thought, this is seriously good. And you know that thing when you look at things you did when you were younger, and you think, I'm not that good. I don't know how I did that.
Yes.
But as I watched through. As I watched it through, you could see it was already getting, fame and money is not good for people. I'm lucky that I'm not at all famous and have surprisingly little money for what contribution I've made. And it's good because you have to keep going,
Yeah.
It's like, I remember when Steve Coogan did a couple of series on telly and discovered he had a Ferrari addiction. You should be so lucky, I've got this terrible Ferrari addiction, doctor. I got to buy another one. I don't know when I'm going to do if I get another one. And that was, back in the day, I often say that people like the 2 Ronnies, Ronnie Barker worked in telly for, 40 years or something. Had a nice house in Chipping Norton, for all I know, a little cabin cruiser on the Thames at Reading, but he wasn't a billionaire.
But a lot of people that you've worked with have gone on to be the richest people in the world.
Yes,
is that hard to? I mean, and for me as well, I have to say, it's the same thing as that.
I know, it's hell.
Is that hard to cope with? Because it's that.
Well, it depends how much value do you place on money. In my case, enough is nice, but too much is clearly not very good for you.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see any evidence that, for example, Douglas became any happier for it. I don't, as somebody who can't hit back on Twitter at me, for example. I think that what tends to happen, I know this from more than 10 years in advertising, after the 3rd series of Blackadder, some idiot offered me a job directing a television commercial. I'd only directed one thing, which was a pop video before. And we spent 5 months talking about the script for this thing, and I said to these 2 guys from the agency, how many of these ads do you do in a year? And they said, well, about two ads. it's what, 2 1-minute ads in here? No, 2 30-second ads, they said. And when I saw what I got paid, well, first of all, the budget for these 2 1-minute commercials that I did was the same as 3 episodes of Blackadder. And then when I got paid, I thought, well, my God, if I do 4 more of these, I can retire. It's fantastic. And it was great the first 3 years doing it, because you get all the toys you can't afford on the BBC, the helicopters and the aircraft carriers and all that kind of thing. And then I suddenly found myself in a position where I had more money than I could easily spend. And I didn't enjoy it very much. And, you kind of hit the buffers. You think, well, what now? I've got all the things that I need, and now I don't want anything else. Now what do I do about it? Mm-hmm. And I think that's what started to happen with Not the 9 O'Clock News, that you can't, once you've had the success, which you've craved at all your teenage years or whatever, and suddenly you start to do things and you start to take it for granted and you think you've got the secret. And that's when you start to get shit, basically. That's when you start to get worse. You see it with stand-ups, don't you?
You do. I think it's completely true. I mean, I feel quite lucky that... I mean, the only thing that
you haven't peaked yet.
Well,
Richard,
I haven't. The only thing I ever did that made money was when I wrote Time Gentlemen Please for Al Murray, which was like 36. We did 35 episodes in 2 years, and I wrote pretty much all of it, and it was well paid. And I suddenly had a lot of money, and I didn't know what to do because we'd made no money up to there. So what I did was bought a house that was too big, so that I would then have to
pay a
keep on
mortgage,
earning money.
I'm the same, exactly what I have.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so then I have to carry. I've still got a big mortgage, so I've got to carry on working.
Yeah.
But I think it does. You definitely see. Why bother putting all of this work? Why bother doing 5 years of fucking free podcasts for idiots if you've got loads and loads of money? So so I think it does keep you definitely artistically. I think with me and Stu, we got to a point where if the BBC had given us more series, it could have taken off in a way that Little Britain did. Probably not in the same extent, but it could have been that. And you kind of think, thank God it didn't, because we would have both gone crazy in different ways, but also coasted on that and then not done the things we've done in the last 10 years.
It's really hard to survive success when young and money. I know I often say this to people. It's actually much easier to be a failure than to be a big success. I know it sounds ridiculous, but the universe, in my view, is built on paradoxes. The paradox of quantum mechanics and relativity that don't match. They disagree with each other, and they always will, because that's what the universe is built on. It's paradox. There's +1 and -1, matter and antimatter. There's nothing really here. It's a zero energy sum, as they say. So that and one of them is this, thing that you won't. I've lost my thread, Richard.
It was good.
I was off with the fairies for a minute, and I can't get back.
I can't really help you. What did you say? Got a nuclear physicist here. Was he right about the and quantum mechanics? Definitely right. There we go. Look, that's I make sure that the front row is inhabited by. There's a astrologer further back. This is a nuclear physicist. So if you need any,
well, it's almost the most wonderful thing that happened to me recently in the last couple of years. I was on Brian Cox's show, The Infinite Monkey Cage.
Yeah.
Which is a show I really like. And on it was Sir Martin Rees, or Lord Rees, as we must call him, the astronomer royal, who happened to be master of my old college, and I knew very slightly. And we were talking about parallel universes. And I've been saying now for at least 15 years the Big Bang Theory will never stack up. It's going to fall to bits in the next 20 years, I said. And Martin started talking about this on the show, saying, of course, it is all crumbling. We think there may be little bangs. There's all sorts of quantum fluctuations. There may even be something in Fred Hoyle's steady state theory. We don't know anything about how the universe began. It's just a guess.
Yeah.
And similarly, when you go into quantum mechanics, God, I wish somebody told me about quantum mechanics when I was at school instead of the physics that we were taught, which is, spring balances and inclined planes and the pointless things you had to remember, rather than this amazing imaginative universe, which is just fantastic, even just to think about, what a lepton does and, how an atom's constructed and this Higgs boson thing is another thing that interests me. Even Peter Higgs has started to say, I wish they'd stop going on about the Higgs boson. There are other things they're doing there. It's not going to solve the... Do you know why it's called the God particle? The Higgs boson?
Because it's the missing part of the universe, isn't
it? So not. It's not, and serious physicists don't think that either. The reason why it's called that is a book called Leon, by a Nobel Prize-winning physics laureate called Leon Lederman, wrote a book, and he wanted to call it the goddamn particle because it was so fucking difficult to find. And the publisher said, we can't call it that because it'll put off the Christian movement, so we'll call it the God particle and maybe get some of those in. So that's where it comes from.
Is that right? It doesn't know. There you go. It's beyond you.
Very
It's gone
good
beyond.
book.
But you spent because you've spent kind of 10 years trying to find the meaning of life. Basically, is what led up to QI. You kind of got depressed after. At what point you kind of lost faith in everything a little bit, and then spent some time.
It's partly. I mean, there were a number of reasons. I mean, I got to the point where I had everything I could conceivably want. You know, houses and children and lots of things I didn't expect to have, and plenty of prizes. A lot more than those, I can tell you.
Brian, have you got a bronze one?
I haven't got one of those. No.
Is yours coming to bit? Look, mate, it's all coming off.
But
Oh.
and then
It's like a house of cards.
and then two things happened. Working in advertising is not good for the soul, and having children is very difficult if you are used to running things. You know, I was running very big, very difficult to run television series, and you have to become a bit of an autocrat. If you're running Splitting Image, somebody has to have Final Cut, and it was me. And then when a 2-year-old is bouncing on the bed and won't stop immediately, it's very, very annoying. And particularly Harry, my oldest, now 22, used to ask these very difficult questions. Like, you know, I got to the age of 40-odd thinking, I really know a lot. I'm pretty good, actually. I've won, you know, more BAFTA awards than anybody else, and, you know, blah, blah, blah. And Harry used to say things like, Dad, does God look after burglars? That's quite difficult. And then his particular one I particularly liked, well, and why is there something and not nothing? You know, that's a hell of a good question for a child, isn't it? Not one that physics can answer, I think I'm right in saying. And then he said, Dad, you know, you keep saying to me, if you watch too much television, you get square eyes. I said, yeah. He said, why don't they make an eye-shaped television? I can watch it as often as I liked. So I got all these questions from the kids, and it started to drive me mad. And then I got fired from a lot of things all at once. I've been fired a lot of times by people. I thought very unfair, and I got very cross about that. And I sat down to think, okay, well, I don't see the point of going on. So I sat down to, read a lot of physics, a lot of Greek philosophy initially, mathematics, started thinking about, and then just went the whole. That's where QI comes from, basically reading far too many books about different things.
Yeah.
And you start thinking, well, first of all, I think you can, if you're seriously interested, you want to know what the meaning of life might be. I think it would take you about 3 years of solid work. And then the rest of your life is trying to live in such a way as to make that meaningfulness meaningful and to do it properly. That's very, very difficult. I haven't got anywhere of that at all.
So you know the meaning of life, you just don't know how to put it into practice.
Well, I don't. I fail continually at behaving optimally, as it were, in order to make the most of the short span that we have. Apparently.
Do you think
Am I going to tell you what it is?
Yeah, well, you can tell me what it is, but also apparently you think you might live longer. Do you think there's life after death? I'm doing a show about death. This is my next show.
Yes,
I don't think there is life after death. Do you think there is life after death?
Well, it depends what you mean. You have to define your terms. Do you know this thing? Do you know my faith at the moment is agnosticism? Do you know this? Anyone see my TED talk online? Anyone see that? Agnostic's a brilliant concept. Agnostics are people who refuse to discuss whether God exists or not until the terms are defined. Right. Okay, so you tell me what kind of God I don't believe in, and then I'll tell you whether I agree or not. So can we agree, how tall? Robe or not? Gimlet eye, large forearms? Does he wear sandals or not, Does he get Sundays off? I mean, when we work on some of this stuff, and then this is just why atheism's so silly. Well, not believe in what? What is it? Which is the God you don't believe in, apart from all of them?
Well, do you not think you can, if you look at history, you can work out where all gods were created by mankind? You can sort of work it backwards and reverse engineer and go, well, this God came about because people in the north, the Vikings didn't understand why it went dark in the winter, so they created this God who flies across the sky and covers up the sun for 3 months or 4 months, or whatever. So you can work out backwards. They're trying to, answer everything.
You don't think they really believe that, do you?
Well, I don't know, but you wouldn't think people would believe any of the things that they get told. Most of the things that religion seems to espouse seem to be made up to make children comfortable with unpleasant
I agree
thoughts.
at the childish level, and the thing is that it's what Richard Dawkins has the thing was he's basically arguing against two things: terrorism, which we all sign up to, that kind of stuff, and kindergarten Christianity, which is but there's other levels of it. If you read St. Augustine, you think, okay, this guy's a seriously bright guy, as no doubt with some of these loony Vikings you talk about. They're probably atheism's always been there. There've always been people who don't sign up to the religions of the day. And the other thing is interesting is that heresy, which is continually stamped out by the Christian church, but also happens in Islam as well, all these people have the interesting ideas. The heretics say, well, it's not really like that. You see, Jesus wasn't really the Son of God because God isn't a real guy. Do you get it? It's like it's kind of a metaphor for something else, for something you can probably, if you know anything about Buddhism or Taoism, you can sign up things like the way, the pattern. There's a grid. If you think about physics in terms of there's some ideas in physics about the field. We don't understand gravity. We don't understand why it's patchy across the universe. You and I think, oh, they know all about gravity, physicists. No, they don't. It's the least understood of the four fundamental forces. They don't know about that. Do you know how many chemicals there are in a wild carrot, Richard?
I do not know.
Well, roughly.
One?
Yeah. Well, they think it's about 114, but they're kind of... a wild carrot's a very complicated thing, as is a mouse or a hedgehog.
Yeah.
We don't really understand you can't make a wild carrot. You don't even know how many chemicals are in it. You probably don't even know what colour one is.
Orange.
Wrong. And yet people are happy to say, oh yeah, I'm an atheist, as if it's kind of like, that's a really original idea. Well done. It's not personal. It's just that what all these years of QI's taught me, and the 10 years before it, is that you better be awfully certain before you say anything that you know definitely to be true. It's not or untrue, because the history of science is the history of people changing their mind about things.
It is, but also science has achieved a certain amount of stuff that makes you think, well, they're heading in the right direction. Science has allowed me to fly, whereas religion has not allowed me to fly. So, you sort of sense that the scientists
And have
are
you
getting
put
closer
that flying to good use, do you think?
Well, yeah, I've been to the Maldives. Quite nice. Before it goes under the sea.
No, I mean, I agree, science, but I'm really, it's not what I'm particularly interested in. I mean, I think it's like, I often say to Robin Ince, who have bump into from time to time, it's odd, isn't it, Robin, that you talk about religion all the time and you're an atheist, and I hardly ever mention it, and I don't know what I think. It's odd. And same with Richard. He should be doing his biology. Go and be like Steve Jones and look at a few more snails,
No, I agree with that. Stop retweeting.
Because we don't need another lecture on the Ten Commandments and how crap they are,
Should see my show, Christ in a Bite.
Well, it's not personal. It's just
no, it's not. No, I think it's. I just think I can't see if there is a creator, why he's bothered doing it. That's or he or she, or what's in it for them.
Well, no, let's take that as an argument. I mean, the two things. This is just playing devil's advocate. So I'm not signed up anything. So, what do you and I know about creativity and how it works? What it is a series of fudges and improvements, isn't it? You try this, it doesn't quite work. You try your stuff in a little pub and it doesn't work. So you try a bit more. You try a bit. Oh, that's a good idea. That works. I'll have that. And eventually you come up, if you're lucky, with something that's a really good hour-long set. That's how creativity works. That's what we know. So the idea is, well, obviously there can't be a creator because there's so many mistakes. But that would lead me to think, then that's probably because it's a created universe. Because you can see the errors and the tryouts and so on. Duck-billed platypus, clearly these, tried a few bits, they didn't stick together off. Just leave that over there for a minute.
But there's not to say that the universe wasn't created by someone, but or something. But if it was created, it doesn't mean that they're still around.
Yeah, but as I say, you're the guy who doesn't know what's in a carrot, for example. Now the thing is, when you go
on the test of. You've just chosen the arbitrary carrot. If it had been a cucumber, I could have told you, but you've decided it's a carrot.
No, I mean, but let's say if let's say there is some entity that's clever enough to have created the world as we see around it and all the galaxies and so forth. How do you think you would be able to work out what their possible motive was for that? I mean, how clever would you have to be to even get some sort of grasp of what's going on there?
Well, I don't think I'm that clever, but I just wouldn't have bothered. So if I had the power to do that, if I had the power to do that, I wouldn't bother to watch out whether a man was sticking his winky in a man's bottom and get cross about it. If I had the ability to create all the galaxies, and that's I guess where I have a problem.
Well, yeah,
with
just before I get lynched by this audience here, I want to say that I'm putting these things to you because they're the questions that started me thinking.
Yeah.
And as a result, since I started thinking about it, I haven't been able to go. I do go to people's weddings and all that kind of thing, but I can't really go to church anymore because I've seen under the blanket, and I know, that people are looking the wrong direction. Okay, when I found out, for example, as Isaac Newton did, that the Bible was completely rewritten at the orders of Emperor Constantine in the 4th century by Bishop now Saint Athanasius of Alexandria, to make it fit better with what the Romans wanted. It's a one-chance thing. The early Christians all believed in the transmigration of souls, reincarnation, and so forth. And that was all got out. You want a religion where do what you're told or you go to hell. When you know that, and then you hear people say, well, the Bible's the word of God. Well, it isn't. It's the word of Saint Athanasius, the Bishop of Alexandria. That's the end of it. And when I heard this, I went and reread Genesis. Well, I hadn't never read the whole book before, even as a schoolboy. But I have been 30-odd years as a script editor. But when you read Genesis, it's so obviously terribly badly cut and pasted. There's about 4 stories all glued together in a terrible hurry.
Yeah.
So you think, that is not the work, obviously not the work of God, and it's not even the work of any particular scholar. It's somebody ham-fistedly bashing it together.
Yeah. Ham-fistedly, yes. Good.
I think you know what my choice is going to be, ladies and gentlemen.
We might never get
I'm
there.
sorry,
John.
I know you just want knob gags, really, but I have people to do that for me, Richard. You see.
No, I want to know that. Well, my show's in the autumn's about the meaning of life, which I'm going to try and get into.
And do you think there is any?
I think it just comes down to, it doesn't matter if there is or not. I think we're probably never going to know if there is. So I think the meaning of life is to understand how incredibly unlikely it is that any of us would be here for an infinite number of reasons almost, and that we should be making the most of the opportunity.
I agree, and that's what the position eventually comes down to. Anybody who's a serious believer, beyond mad mullahs and people who want to, Christian fundamentalists and everything else, that people come to the idea that actually the point is to behave well. That's what you need to do, and the Stoics would have said that, and so would the Epicureans, because people think that Epicureanism, for example, is about, rogering and eating pies, but actually Epicurus worked out that the greatest pleasure you could have was to live a good life, including pies and wine and jagging, although he didn't do a lot of it himself. So it all comes down to that. The thing is, it's important to do what's right because that's the right thing to do. There's nothing else to say. And it's not, even in Christianity, you do not get to heaven. You're deluded if you think you get to heaven by doing good works. You don't. You get there because you've behaved well, by God's grace.
I think if the world's just on average slightly better than it was when you got there because of you, that'd be quite a good thing to have. Because you're going to do lots of bad things and lots of terrible things, but if you can do enough good things to balance that up, then it's a definition of what's good and bad, isn't it?
But the thing is, I come to this position not because, what did it for me was watching my children be born. I think I could not understand where this consciousness came from, where it was so obvious they were conscious as soon as they popped out. It's not about, thinking there's life after death because one's frightened of dying, because I'm sure everybody is. But then there's the other thing, why? Why are people frightened of dying? They don't know anything about it.
But
it's
also,
for the
first 13 billion years of the universe, you weren't here. So it would just be, there's no reason to presume it won't be the same.
There's no way of proving that. We might well have been here.
Why would you forget? It must have been amazing.
Because I'm getting close to giving it all away. I mustn't do that. I'm going to sell my book. But these things, it's just a different cast of mind. I've spent a lot of my life trying to solve difficult problems and make them look, That's what programs are. They're a series of incredibly difficult problems that have been solved and made to look easy. You know, when you watch, you know, Spitting Image, you think, well, that looks easy. You know, some puppets. Was it your idea? Well, that depends what you mean. There are a million ideas in Spitting Image and solving different problems. And so I've come to the conclusion that there aren't any problems, or there shouldn't be any problems. There are insoluble. And this one eludes us. You know, the meaning of life, why are we here, what should we do about it? It's really annoying to me that it isn't, you can't buy the workshop manual in Smith's, you know. And I want to know why, and there's got to be a reason for that. I don't think things happen without reasons. Ever.
Yeah.
Fuck you.
But more importantly, have you ever tried to suck your own cock? There's something that we can answer yes or no to right now.
Actually, no, I don't think so.
Oh. Disappointing.
Well, I mean, maybe when I was sucking my toes, I might have had a go. I can't remember.
When you were a baby. That's disgusting. And let's do the ham hand. Would you prefer, you've heard the question because you were here, would you prefer to have a hand made? You can ask any questions on top of this, I suspect you might. Is the hand really there at all? Is a hand made out of ham, you can eat the ham, but it'll grow back eventually, but not straight away, or an armpit that dispenses sun cream, enough for you and one other person to get through the year?
It's just like talking to Kirsty on Desert Island Disc. Could I have mustard in the armpit instead of suntan cream? Because that's what I would go for. I love ham and mustard sandwiches.
But you wouldn't be able to have both, though, would you? You'd have the mustard and then no ham. You can't have the ham and the mustards. You have to make a choice. That's why it's a brilliant question. If you could just say, oh, am I allowed to have gold in the armpit and the hand's made out of diamonds? No, that is not the question. The question is a ham hand or an armpit that dispenses sun cream. Chris Addison wanted other stuff in the armpit. He wanted a surprise out of the armpit, which I allowed.
A surprise?
Well, just, you never know what's going to come out. It could be anything.
What,
which that's all right, but you can't have the ham hand if you have that.
Could I have my cock in my armpit, for example? That would work for me.
Would you like that? What, so it's easier to suck, or just so it's a nice surprise? Whoop. You can get on with something else while you...
Oh, hello, my dear.
It would mean you'd have to wank with... You'd definitely have to wank with one hand. I think, husband, no, you'd be all right. You could do an underhand. That'd be like someone else was doing it. Good. Is that the answer? You want a cock in your armpit? No. Because someone somewhere is going to put these on the internet eventually. Someone's going to give everyone's answer on the internet, and that will, when they Google you, it'll be like, oh, that's the man who wants a cock in his armpit. Have you ever seen a ghost?
No.
No. Disappointing, isn't it? No one has.
But again, it's not something that I would necessarily rule out.
Right.
But no, and I don't personally believe in ghosts. But that, I hesitate. That's just my opinion. It's not a fact. It's not. I'm more right if you. I know you don't believe them because you just.
I did
said
say
so.
before. Well, you never know, do you?
But there must be something mysterious that you don't believe in that you might come round to. For example,
I'm very open-minded about. I'd love there to be ghosts.
Do you know why things are funny? Do you know what art is?
Do I know what art is?
Do you know why the seed of the sequoia tree is like absolutely tiny? There's like 40,000 of them in an ounce or something, and it's the biggest tree in the world.
I don't know why that is, no.
No, but the thing is, we don't know. Do you know anything about consciousness? The hard problem, as scientists call it? Do you know what that is?
No. I don't know anything.
No.
I've just realised.
I'm just saying, but it's not. I'm not being. It's not personal, Richard.
Seems to be. Seems to be like you've gone to someone and go, do you know what stuff Richard doesn't know about? Yeah, make a list of it and I will... Does he know what's in a carrot? He definitely doesn't know that, John. Put that on the list. He'll look like a fucking idiot.
No, I'm just saying, it's certainly in no way is it personal. This is just the thing is that's what happens.
That's what makes it personal. The fact he says
it isn't.
It's not personal. If he hadn't said it's not personal,
it's just a QI
I wouldn't have
thing.
taken it personally. It's the fact he's saying it's not personal that's getting to me. Yeah, sorry.
It's It's a QI thing. Nobody knows anything very
don't.
much. They know only a very, very narrow range of things, and they don't connect them together, so they don't think about these big... But they just take that for granted. They say, well, scientists know about that, or artists know about that, or comedians. I said before that somebody offered me a job at university as professor of comedy, and I said, well, I can't do that because nobody understands how that works. We know when it works. It's a bit like gravity, you know. Yeah. We know when it works, but how, nobody's got any idea. Nobody can tell you how to be funny.
Or where it comes from.
No.
Because sometimes it feels like it... See, there are things like that sometimes it feels like a joke has come fully formed into your brain that you haven't thought about, that it feels like it's been... Most of as it occurs to me felt like it had been beamed into my head. Not by someone particularly funny, I have to say. But it was good. At least it was a script.
Well, that's the case in point, is, you know, when we say... Where does an idea come from? You're an idiot if you say it comes from inside my head. It clearly comes from some... It arrives, it occurs to you. You know, an idea occurred to me. So it's like you bump into someone in the street. That's what ideas are like to me. And they're mysterious. I remember working with a wonderful physicist called Paul Davies, who briefly considered the idea of being an Equitable Life ad on television. And we got to talk about things. And I said, this is a question, I just got interested in this stuff. It was when I just had my little bit of a froth. And I said, where do ideas come from? He said, God, that's a brilliant idea. I don't know. I never thought about that. He said, he like crosswords, you know. He said, when I'm doing crossword, and often something occurs to me, you think, where's that come from? And it's one of the really interesting ideas. Here's another one that I came across the other day. Another thing my son Harry said to me when he was about 14, he said, Dad, can you remember what I was like when I was 2? I said, well, of course, Harry, it was yesterday, actually. He said, why can't I? I thought, that's a brilliant question. That's really odd, because none of us can we? Maybe 1 or 2 incidents. I claim to remember the coronation when I was 2 3/4. I just read in the paper yesterday that this remains one of the big questions of science. Why is that hidden from us?
Because you're a dick, that's why. And so it's just like your brain's too embarrassed to remember how stupid you are. Also, if you could remember being born, I think you would look at your parents in a different way. So I think there has to be an element where the first...
That's Stephen Fry's joke, because did you tell that one last week? He said that it's the last time I'm going up one of those.
Though 5%, my wife's in the 5%. He said afterwards, 5% of women.
What?
Well, he said he's got 5% of women that he fancies. My wife's one. I don't know if that says she's mannish or not, but it is. She's as you know, you've seen her. She's way too good for me. So I'm sorry, darling. I love you. Please don't beat me again afterwards. Are you glad that you ended up not presenting Have I Got News For You? Let's move on to this for a second, and then we'll come back to this. Because I think, well, before we go on to that, don't you worry by overthinking stuff that you turn into, you overthink stuff so much that you, in fact, go a bit crazy, like David Icke, that bloke who was on the Andrew Neil show on Sunday.
Yeah, I did. I used to think that. I used to think that if you start getting interested in these things, you're going to not have a sense of humour, and life is going to be very dull. And actually, you get out the other side of that, I think. Yeah.
And you
I know I failed you here tonight, Richard, but I mean, generally, it's...
This is good. This is good stuff, John. I'm not going to start. I'm not going to be personal. This is good stuff. This is really good stuff. Let's because you came up with the format for Have I Got News For You? John Lloyd's News Round. Is that what it was going to be called?
Yeah.
That's a bad name.
It's a terrible title, isn't it? But is Have I Got News For You, actually, the worst title in the world. But it doesn't matter because it's such a good show. So
I think, well, not as bad as Nevermind the Buzzcocks. That is the worst title for... That's just rubbish. But once it's established, it's good. But you were going to host it, or you hosted the pilot?
I did, yeah.
So that could have been a different world of hookers and cocaine for you.
Yeah.
I don't know if that came with the job.
I wasn't that keen. I just started directing ads, so I was making loads of money, having a lot of fun. But they asked me to do this. I think in part the idea was, as I'd invented the format on the radio, that if they got me aboard, then people would it would somehow give them, make it look less like stealing, basically, I suppose. Because it was strictly owned by the BBC, really, because I was a staff producer.
Was it from the news quiz?
Yeah.
From the news originally.
But I don't know. Anyway, so the first thing is once you go from radio to telly, you've got to look nice. So I got taken out shopping, and I bought these suits I would never wear, and strange bright red shoes that I would never put on that didn't fit, and in this rather uncomfortable garb, I went into makeup, which had never happened to me before, and the makeup lady's just making me orange, and she said, "Oh, you're losing your hair, aren't you?" That was a horrible thing to say, because I was, it had never occurred to me. I was in my 30s that I was starting to lose my hair, and so I went out in front of the audience. You can imagine how cheerful I was. The warm-up went down like sick, and I wasn't. I really wasn't very good, and so afterwards I said to Jimmy, the producer, "I don't think it's really me." So, and he got a bit cross with me.
He said, "We bought you those red shoes.
Yeah,
You're fucking going to present this, even though they're under the desk and we can't see
And it's
them."
hard to imagine, but it was actually, given how famous Angus has become and how brilliant he was at it, he's much better at it than I would have been, is that it was a disaster for them, because they very nearly didn't get the pilot picked up, because they, believe it or not, wanted me, because in the late 80s, I was, quite well known, I suppose. And they thought it would work because I've got on very well with Ian Hislop and Paul Merton in a way that Angus didn't. Is that going to be on the papers tomorrow?
If you go a little bit further, it might be. You can go into details. Well, I think it's clear they weren't that bothered when he went, or they kind of seemed to push him a little bit, didn't they?
I think that's probably true.
Yeah. So I think that was fairly clear, at least by that stage. But that's interesting. I've got some questions from the Welsh children. Archie has said, "What's it like being John Lloyd? I want to be in the papers." So we'll ask that, because I think we should ask that. I should have asked Mary that. What's it like being? Was that the original question? Yeah. What's it like being John Lloyd?
That's a weird question.
It is, but this is what last week led to us getting on the news. So off you go. If there's anything you want to open up about, have you ever killed a man just to watch him die?
That's a question. I remember when I was casting some kids in a commercial for something or other, and I said to them, they were about 7. What's your mum and dad like? I said, I don't understand what you mean. They're my mum and dad. There's nothing else to say. It's like, what's it like being me? Well, it is just I don't know. It's all I know. So, can anyone else think of a good answer to that question? It seems
Stephen Fry did pretty well, didn't he? He did all right.
Oh, well, that's when he revealed about.
Yeah, it was. That was the question, which I think it's a kind of question a child would ask, but I think it's sort of an interesting.
Well, I think it's a very, very interesting thing, because the question of identity, of who you are and whether that extends either side of your apparent birth and death, is an interesting idea. And whether people have multiple identities, outside the multiple identities they might already have in life.
You're not going to get in the papers, Archie. I'm sorry, you're not going to...
I'm determined not to get in the papers.
Well, that's good. It's good not to get in the papers. I worked with Richard Bowden on Time Gentlemen Please. He was the director of the Blackadder Goes Forth. And it's quite interesting. I think this has probably been talked about a little bit, but it's quite interesting the way that the famous scene of Blackadder, the final scene of Blackadder, came about. So did you have a part in that, where they all go out over the trench and they all kind of die and it turns into the poppy fields?
Yeah.
This wasn't a deliberate... This wasn't what you kind of intended, basically, was it?
Well, we intended... It was... it's a really interesting thing, Blackadder being so successful. It's constant frustration that I kept saying to Ben and Richard, we must write the episode where they're all just stuck in one room, like Hancock's Sunday at Home, because that's classic sitcom. If you can do that, just have 5 or 6 characters at the most, and they just talk to each other. You don't need anyone else. And Blackadder doesn't conform to that model. Most weeks in comes Sir Walter Raleigh as the biggest part, or Dr. Johnson, or Flash Hart, who have these great big set pieces. And I pushed them for ages to try and do this thing, and they finally come up with the last episode of the last thing, and it's a brilliant piece of writing. And I think we sort of all knew it was all over, and it was very moving, and the way that the episode worked, I'm sure many of you have seen it, is it starts very funny and silly, and that gradually all the colour and the laughter drains out of it, and becomes quite sad. And even the people you've kind of despised and hated, you see, it's very moving and wonderfully well acted. And what we wanted was then a brilliant scene at the end where they all get killed, or probably get killed. And so we took over the whole of one of the studios at Television Centre. The main one had the main sets in it. And the one next door had this amazing no man's land. I went in there, it was seriously scary. I mean, seriously, even without, the lights on. There's something spooky about it. Even if you stood in the set in Blackadder 4, you went into the trenches and you looked at the Syke, the blue sky above with the barbed wire, gives you the creeps, really. So the gallery, as usual, we're overrunning because we've done too many retakes or whatever, something's gone wrong. So there's a PA in the other studio, right, okay, cue all the stuff, lights go on, pyrotechnics, amazing explosions, and the actors hadn't had time to rehearse it, so they're coming up the ladders onto this no man's land which they hadn't even trodden before, and there's loads of earth and bits of real barbed wire and the explosions going off this dark, and it's like, 2 minutes to 10, I got on the PA and said to the girl, can we just want one more take, please? It's just hopeless, because it was hopeless. You could see them start, Hugh Laurie go, oh, for fuck's sake, what's this? And he's, I just trodden in something, I caught my leg on this, and it was really terrible, And so Rowan gets on the walkie-talkie and he says, I'm sorry, John, we basically go on strike. It was really a horrible, horrible experience. Everybody here is really frightened, and it's fucking, it's a mess in here, honestly, and it's a disgrace that we should have to do this, so I'm sorry, no. So I went home very depressed because it didn't have a decent take, and when we got into the edits and we cut this thing, it was fantastic, and they bit when Rowan blows the whistle, and, I have a cunning plan, sir. And we mended it that far, and then we had this awful bit of stuff on the end, and then gradually it's a wonderful example of teamwork that piece by piece, each person in the room, there are about 5 or 6 of us there, I suppose, has a different idea. So the editor, Chris Wadsworth, says, maybe if we put it into slow-mo, that would maybe just, take the edge off it in some, maybe extreme slow motion perhaps. And then the assistant editor said, yeah, I'll tell you what, Chris, what about going to monochrome at the same time, make it black and white? Your skin starts to prickle, you think, ooh, that's kind of interesting. And then Howard Goodall had composed the music. It was a single piano and a gym, and then they said, what about slowing the music down as well? And now something really starts to happen, because it's an incredibly plangent sound, we're mucking around with all the buttons. And then the last thing was that I think the PA said, I've got a great idea. I think I saw a wonderful picture of some poppies up in the photo library. I'll just nip up and get it. So she goes up and does that. And then you've seen the sequence that they go up, the music starts, and then they all start to fall to earth. And then there's this incredibly long mix. It goes on for about 10, 12 seconds. And poppies appear to grow out of this monochrome earth and go red. And then it just says Blackadder, 1453 to 1917. And my only contribution on it was to say we can't put credits on this. It would be an insult to all the people who died in that war on either side. So that's all. Everything else was done by all those other people. I had no creative contribution. As the most extraordinary thing that I call this touching the numinous. Sometimes, only about 3 or 4 times in my life, you do something which is based on maybe 10 years very hard work, and something happens. You get a little thing, you think, ooh. And the abiding thing, people often say, are you proud of that? And I say, well, I'm proud of the people who made it, that I was in the room. I'm proud that I was proud to be with these amazing people who made it happen, who didn't give up under pressure and didn't shout or blame people, which would have been easy to do. And then this thing happened. That was the most amazing thing, because if top 10 television moments around the world, you quite often see it in there, along with the moon landings, that kind of thing. And that's why I started to be interested in the idea is how much are we actually responsible for anything that really happens to us? Because sometimes it is a sort of God particle moment that something really extraordinary happens that you're really only peripherally involved with. And I took this rough cut home to show it to Sarah, my wife. We'd only just got married. We were living in this little one-bedroom flat. And it was an open plan thing with a kitchen and a television and a sofa between. And so I was making some supper for us, very, very proud of this amazing thing that we'd done. And I saw watching it came to an end, and that fuzzy bit when the colour bars go and it runs out, and it's just the tape just going around blank. And Sarah's sitting there. I could just see the back of her head over the sofa. And I thought, what a cow! She's fallen asleep. I don't believe it. She's just sitting there motionless. And I went round and I looked at her to see her apparently snoring, and she was just sitting with her eyes open, and tears were just pouring down her cheeks. It was really incredibly moving moment. But I say the curious thing is that one's main emotion when there was a sense of humility, of almost embarrassing to have been over-rewarded for something that...
Yeah, but I guess whenever any good comedy show or any piece of art comes together that's a group effort, is about all the different aspects of that coming together. So the performance and the writings and and everything. Chris Wadsworth is a fantastic editor.
He is a brilliant editor.
But good. Oh.
But it is interesting, just that thing of... That's what interests me in life. It interests me is getting to that moment of excellence. And I say you can't legislate for genius. Nobody's a genius, really. But what you can take credit for is in not giving up when things get difficult, and trying to go on and on. And just every so often you get these amazing things where you think... And I always have the feeling, always, when I've been involved in something really good, that it's not me. It's that one is a kind of a medium, if you like, a conduit for something larger, some greater consciousness that involves more than one mind.
But if the same person keeps on cropping up in the things that are successful, that does suggest there's a bit more to it than that. So, I mean, everything you've been involved with has been...
But the thing is, okay, so, I'm sorry to go on about this. These things interest me. Okay, so one of the things that I think is that great art, it is impossible to achieve great art with the ego in place. And that sportsmen call it the zone, in painting, in dance, and anything. Everybody knows that feeling when you're doing something really well, that time dilates and you have no sense of self. I get this a lot when I'm film directing. You think film directing is a very arrogant thing to do, but actually it's the reverse. That great film directors actually don't have an ego. They're so focused on the work, and the business of getting connected with some greater, it's not intelligence that I think, intuition, or is when that happens. There's something really magical going on that doesn't involve men in white beards or anything. It's just that. And so, if I've been good at a few things or done a few good things, it's not really to do with anything to do with talent. It's to do with believing in certain kind of core values of honesty and courage and determination and that kind of stuff. That's what I think it's about.
And probably giving a fuck, isn't it?
I do give a fuck.
Yeah, no, exactly. So I think a lot of people, when it goes wrong, it's just you think, people go, that'll do.
Yeah, I don't have that button.
No.
I don't have a that'll do lever, really, ever.
Do you think that you could have saved The Right Way if you'd produced that? Because that's written by the same person as wrote Blackadder Goes Forth.
Well, I think everybody needs an editor.
Yeah.
And
a bin.
But it just shows you, the thing is that you get famous and regarded, and nobody dares tell you anymore what to do. And an awful lot of my friends have got to that position where they think, yeah, you may be right, yeah, maybe we do good things, but I don't want to be told anymore what to do. And I don't want to be disagreed with. I want to have my own way because that's what I want, and I can have it because I'm rich and famous. And that isn't a very good idea in anybody's book.
Could do with a cock joke now. Just end it off. I think it's been amazing. I don't think it's not. I'd like to see the Daily Mail try and get this into a headline. I'd like to see Eamon Holmes trying to discuss this on Sky Sunrise this week. I don't think it's going to happen, but I'm very glad about that. It was really interesting. Thank you very much. It was not even quite interesting. It was very interesting. Please give it up for John Lloyd, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
How'd you like them sky potatoes?
Oh, what colour's that, John Lloyd? Orange. Idiot. And look, it made of chemicals, is it? Well, if it's made of chemicals, how come I can eat it? Touche. Quite nice. Phoebe's just having a lie down here. She's okay. I'm okay. Made the mistake of eating carrot during this bit, which I mean, that's not a YouTube sensation. The man who's eating a carrot. If it's got cut, I only took a small bite. It was impossible to eat. We're doing more of these RHLSTPs. Shut up, Phoebe. You've done your bit. In June and July, go to the Leicester Square Theatre website and you can check out tickets there. You can also buy tickets for an extended run of 12 shows and 12 different shows I'm doing over 6 weekends. All of my stand-up shows plus a new one at the end in August and September. So if you're London bound or can get down here, why not come and see 1, 2, 6 or all 12 of those. I'll make you a handmade t-shirt drawn by me if you come to all 12. And about 20 odd people are already doing that, which is more than I expected. And if you're also in London on the 15th of May, I'll be doing the DVD record of Lord of the Dance Settee at the Bloomsbury, which is always a lot of fun. It's selling quite well, but it'd be lovely to have that full, give me the illusion of popularity when people look at that down the eons, which will be the next 3 or 4 years before no one ever watches it again. If you enjoy the Rich Tones Leicester Square Theatre podcast and would like to help us to make more or just want to contribute for this free entertainment, go to gofasterstripe.com/badges where you can buy a badge or just make a donation without making a badge. It's terrific if you would give a small amount monthly, whatever you choose, £1 or more would be great. Or you can just buy a DVD. All that money will go to me and Chris Evans, not that one at Go Faster Stripe. And we will use that money to make more comedy because that's just the kind of idiots we are. We like making comedy. But if you don't want to pay, don't get cross. I'm not begging. I'm just saying, some people want to pay because they think, oh, it would be nice to help out and move things along. And if we make enough money, we'll be doing a monthly video version of Artima. So, there's lots to play for. And you do get an exclusive channel of extra videos if you're a subscriber, monthly subscriber. Ticket offers and you get entered into a monthly draw where you can win handmade t-shirts, signed snooker balls and other bits of tat from out of drawers that I'm not selling on eBay. If you don't want to pay £1 a month, you can go and pay some money on eBay to buy some of this stuff. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. Thanks for watching. We'll be back with another one of these next week, no doubt. Can't remember who it is next week. Orange. No chemical. Quite exact demonstration, John Lloyd. QI, QEZ.